Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Thursday, and it's a good Thursday to be here today. It took me a little bit to get logged in this morning, and yeah, that's what happened. so, yeah, it's another beautifully chilly, rainy spring morning here, and I'm quite enjoying this morning. Even though I had a bit of a, I don't know if it would be best described as a kerfluffle. I don't know what to call it. Uh, an issue with my neti pot. Um, I switched over to a different style in the last couple of days, and I got impatient with it this morning, so I switched back to the one that I can pressurize, and I over pressurized it, and still got like pressure and water coming out of my sinuses. So it's doing its job, but it's just doing it at a pace that I'm not familiar with, and it feels weird. Um, but anyway, let's go ahead and find ourselves in our meditation posture. We're just going to get right into a little breathing and a short bit of meditation this morning. So if you're in a chair like I am, you want to sit upright as much as you can. Take notice of how you hold your shoulders. Do you hunch forward, closing in the front of your body? If so, just give yourself a little counter stretch. Go back a little further than you need, pulling the shoulder blades together, stretching the shoulder and chest open. Head back just a touch. Hands in the upward position. Gentle stretch. We're not trying to win an award. We're just opening up and release. And when you release, come back to a balanced place of centeredness. You want to be not closing forward and not pulling back. You just want to be balanced. Make sure that your neck is not straining. Check the muscle in your eyebrows, the top of your head, your jaw. Just give yourself a quick body scan. See where you're holding on to any discomfort or any strenuous activity, something that's causing strain or bringing your attention to it. Adjust if you need. You may also be on a pillow or a mat on the floor, a folded towel or a blanket, cross-legged position. Check your lower back. Make sure that it's got the support that it needs, and you may need to fold a second towel or small pillow and put it underneath your butt. And this will help the lower back not to strain as you try to find balance with the upper body over the hips and thighs. Wiggle the toes. Roll the ankles just a bit, flexing the calves and shins. Do what you need to do to let your body relax. And if you're lying down on a couch or the floor or bed, it's the same thing. We're simply finding balance in our body to allow for relaxation. Relaxation of the body sends a signal to the mind that you're safe and it's okay to relax. And breathe. While finding natural breath, I'm going to breathe with my nose. If you need to breathe in your mouth, this is okay too. There's no right or wrong way, it's just what I'm doing. Now we'll do 3 elongated, deep breaths together. Again, if you can close the mouth, I find it to be beneficial, but if you can't, that's okay. So we're going to breathe in deeply for a count of 4 and exhale for a count of 6. 3 times together. You can watch my hand. Okay, exhale and breathe in. And out. And in. And out. And in. And out. Return to natural breath. We're going to do the same thing one more time. And this time, focus your attention on your diaphragm. And when you breathe in, you should feel the stomach expand a bit. The gut's going to open up just a touch as the diaphragm moves downward into the body. But I want you to focus and think as if you're breathing directly into your pelvic floor, directly into the bottom of your root, pulling that diaphragm downward. So with less focus on bringing the stomach out and more stomach on bringing the diaphragm down, you'll feel a difference. So let's take just a few seconds here to see if you can feel that difference before we go into a shared breathing. Here we go. Just give yourself a few breaths. You may even feel slight pressure in the groin. And the lower parts of the torso and the lower back. And we'll do 3 breaths, 4 in, 6 out. Breathe in real good and release everything. And here we go. In in and out. Okay. Return to natural breath. Notice anything that feels different than before, or maybe you're just now beginning to take notice in how your body feels this morning. Notice the shift in breathing capacity. It may be subtle, but the act of engaging the diaphragm with intention is going to begin to make more active use of those breathing muscles that we tend to disregard in our daily breathing with our posture, our furniture. And with anxiety and alertness, it changes the way that we breathe. So this practice right now is returning us to a fully functional and natural way of breathing. It's also called baby's breath. Slow, gentle, controlled breathing in and out of the nose. Let's give ourselves 5 minutes to close our eyes and relax. Simply close your eyes, place your hands on your lap. Breathe. And relax into this meditation. yourself back into awareness. Okay, so that was 5 minutes following our just pretty basic breathing practice. The reason I chose 5 minutes today is I wanted to illustrate by practice that we don't always need 20 minutes or 30 minutes, even though those are really amazing sessions that we give ourselves, right? When we sit for 20 or 30 minutes in complete or relative silence and stillness. And sometimes even longer, I really like those long forays inside of my internal landscape, but as a practice, even just 5 minutes, heck, even just 3 minutes or 30 seconds of allowing yourself to intentionally silence the chatter, the internal chatter, can have really amazing benefits. If you do this every day, it can have really amazing benefits. And it goes back to the thing that we talk about often here is the subtle changes, right? The subtle shifts. And again, it's the most subtle things sometimes can have the most drastic effect on the other end. And being able to recognize that within ourselves is really important. And it's really important because we can oftentimes move through our life in extremes. We want the biggest big gulp that we can get. We want the family size bag of Oreos. We want to supersize our lives. And we've been somehow convinced that bigger is better, or that the longer you can do whatever. I remember when we were kids and everything for a while was some contest to see who the leader in the group was. And you'd go to the swimming pool and there was always the coolest kid who could hold his breath the longest, or could jump from the highest rock at the river, or whatever it may be. And this striving, internal, like personal striving to experience something greater, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, right? There's nothing inherently wrong with any of it. But what can end up happening is we can pattern ourselves in a way that we become dissatisfied if it's not big or painful or whatever it may be, if it's not the hottest hot wing. And that dissatisfaction, interestingly, in the Pali language, which is the language that the writings of the Buddha are coming from, there's Sanskrit translations, there's Pali translations, right? There's Pali transcriptions. And we see this word that the Buddha talks about. And I know I keep coming back to Buddhism and teachings of the Buddha this week. And I think it comes back to, I think that these teachings are universal in a lot of ways. They're not attached to a religion necessarily. There's nobody to pray to or to bow to, if you don't want to. There's There's no dogma related to these practices. Anybody can practice these teachings because they're really basic. They're really basic teachings, and they're really universal. So I'm repeating myself, uh, but the Buddha talks about suffering, right? All life is suffering, but the word used, dukkha, can also be translated as not satisfied or unsatisfied or outside of satisfaction, right? So that changes a lot of things. It kind of takes the somewhat abstract notion of suffering. I'm getting a little warm this morning. That's amazing. I'm usually in here shivering under a blanket. Um, but we take the idea of suffering and we abstract it a bit. It's a difficult thing to pin down because it's really so subjective, right? Like what you see as suffering, I may not experience as suffering. And we understand this because we talk a lot about suffering, or we explore suffering as what is the root of it, or what is suffering. And I've come to accept that suffering is the attachment that I have towards pain. All right, my story, if I want to hold on to a story of how I was wronged, I'm suffering. I'm suffering that because I'm not finding any place there for understanding from a wider perspective. So I'm suffering in on the focused suffering of pain. I'm suffering the pain. We can suffer waiting, when you're to get to the back. 3 minutes can feel like eternity. Suffering. It doesn't seem trivial, but it really is a practice. It's a practice of suffering. We practice all the time. We practice our patience, practice our attachments in the smallest of ways. So we can practice the other way. We'll get into it. But the point is, suffering is abstract, right? There's not a hard-cut rule or line for how to stop suffering. It's not like the Ten Commandments. That's easy. We get this. Do not murder. That's an easy one. I know how to not murder. you know, uh, do, do not covet. That's a difficult one because coveting is sometimes, that's a natural inclination that comes up. So we have to learn how to harness our thoughts and move ourselves into a way of not coveting. And the way of not coveting, of course, is to be satisfied. Yeah. I don't envy someone if I'm satisfied with who I am. So this is where the interesting overlap of the translations of dukkha from suffering to without satisfaction. How they're the same. They're the same. So this, for me, this translation gives me a little bit more a gauge for understanding when I'm suffering. Right? And then it also lets me understand when I'm practicing suffering. When I'm intentionally practicing the practice of suffering. And it is a practice. It's something that we get really good at. And we do it and we stick with it. So when I'm doing 20 or 30 minutes of deep meditation at a time, and I get that little bit of a high, that little bit of dissociation sometimes, we got to watch it, right? Because this thing that we're doing to bring us more in the moment, more present with ourselves, all of a sudden we're kind of using it to get out of the moment. We're using it to escape feelings. We're using it to escape behaviors. And this is okay. It doesn't matter why you're here. It's just that you're here. And I'm speaking here as in the self, not as in this particular session. It doesn't matter how or why you get to that centered place within yourself. It's being there that counts. However, if you are running away, then you only get so far. You only get so far away. Because where could you go? So maybe for a practice right now, and feel free to participate or not, I'm going to go to the chat. Good morning, Price. Good morning, Silas. And hello, Brian. Good morning, Brian. Nice to see a new face in the chat room today. So I'm going to display the chat in the video feed. And there's a practice that we have in death midwifery, in the particular lineage that myself and my wife are studied under, and what we practice is there's a meditative practice where we ask, tell me something you do to avoid suffering, right? And it's a practice you can do with a partner, or you can do it with yourself. And I do it with myself often, so I think to myself, what's one thing that I do to avoid suffering? And sometimes the answer is as surface as tell a joke. Sometimes when I sense that I'm going to be suffering something, I'll tell a joke and avoid that suffering. I'm avoiding it. I'm not going to deal with that right now. I'm still suffering, but I'm not dealing with it, right? So I'll make a joke. This is pretty common. So in the chat, if you want to, you can put a practice that you have, something that you've done. And when I say practice, it sounds like it's a positive thing, and I don't want to be positive or negative. This is not my point. What's something that you do to avoid suffering? Maybe sometimes I'll grab 2 cookies. Or sometimes I will cast blame outwardly. It's a different kind of suffering. Brian says, meditate. Yes, exactly. Sometimes we meditate to avoid suffering. Right. So this practice of understanding by listening, even just to ourselves or to one another, we can listen to and have compassion for the ways in which we avoid. Trice says breathing. Good. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes when I'm starting to feel, well, I can think of a physical example, getting tattooed, right? You get to start feeling pain and you start holding your breath, and a good tattoo artist will always remind you, breathe, please, breathe. I don't want you passing out in my chair. Breathe. You have to breathe all day long. So then yes, I will start breathing more controlled, deeper, calmer, and then I can manage. The pain goes from suffering to pain, and pain is just an experience. Pain is just a sensation. Story that I attach to it. Oh my God, this will never end. This will never end. This is the worst thing. This is permanent. I'm broken. This will never end. That's the suffering. But the pain, even some really terrible pain, it can be experienced. And yes, if we attach stories to it, it can turn into trauma, and it can last for a long time. It can stay with us for a long time, and it can affect a lot of parts of our lives. But when I'm thinking of what I do to avoid suffering, and I'm really happy that both Trice and Brian commented with those practices of meditating and breathing. Brian says, to help others or ask someone about their day, to get out of my thoughts of what's causing me suffering. Okay, yeah. So these practices that we're talking about. These are wonderful things, right? These are I can't think of any reason or anybody that would ever say, don't do that. That's a bad thing. I mean, I was taught as a child not to meditate because there's certain beliefs in the church that I grew up in that meditating was somehow communing with the devil. But I've learned otherwise in my life now, gratefully. Uh, but otherwise, other than that, I can't think of anything that people would say, well, that's a bad practice, right? That's, you shouldn't do that. That's, but if I were to put in the chat room drinking, getting drunk, something I do to avoid suffering, which is true, you know, it's true that in the past I have turned to getting drunk to avoid suffering. I didn't want to deal with my pain. Right now, there's a TikTok going around where the chorus says, I got wasted because I didn't want to deal with myself. Right. So we know that there's what we can see as healthy or unhealthy ways of avoidance, but it's all avoidance to a degree, or it can be. Right. And so the practice of reducing the meditation to 5 minutes, right? And this may be just a different layer of avoidance. I don't know. I haven't gotten there in myself yet. But what I'm doing is occasionally I'll do these practices as a way to one, give myself the break that I need. I need that reset. I need that time to go internally. Two, I may not have 20 minutes or 30 minutes in my day to set aside every day, or may not have the focus or attention to give. That's another issue. Forcing myself to sit for 20 minutes when my mind and body just want to go, well, that doesn't seem to be too beneficial. So sitting for 5, sitting for 30 seconds, sitting for 3 minutes, sitting for 5 minutes, whatever it is, it's going to keep us in a practice and gear ourselves towards calm and centeredness. And that's the goal, if there is a goal. But the reason that I like the practice of asking myself, tell me what you do to avoid suffering, is it reminds me that even the most healthy things, even the most giving, kind, and caring things, I have the ability to hide behind them. And this isn't to say don't do these things. Not at all. It's just about recognizing in myself when I'm using my practice to go deeper in, or whether I'm using my practice to get out. And sometimes the way out is in. That's Thich Nhat Hanh, one of Tay's teachings, was the way to get out is to go in. So if I'm getting into a place where I'm hiding behind my compassion, I'm hiding behind my spirituality, I'm hiding behind my want for calm, is I want to let me sit for just a second with this. I can use these otherwise good things as a waiver up what I say are bad feelings or negative feelings. And while the practice of not using my negative feelings or my bad feelings, and I don't like necessarily using those words, but when I use them, I think you know what I mean. I think we can all understand what that means to have bad feelings, feeling that we don't want to have, feelings that aren't serving us, maybe feelings that we've been shamed for in the past, or feelings we're embarrassed of. Our anger sometimes can be an embarrassment because we behave in ways that is it's embarrassing. It's, we are irrational and we're mean and we're loud and we're big and we're throwing a fit. We don't know it in the moment, of course. We're completely justified. This person's wrong and I'm right, period. Cut and dry, right? Of course. Of course. The rationale of anger is so thorough that it will convince you that you're righteous. So yeah, of course, I'm going to attribute that anger or that feeling to a negative feeling or a bad feeling I don't want to have. However, the pattern of existence that we've had for most of us, for most of our lives, have been to push those feelings down when they come up and sugarcoat them or cover them. And so it's really not that far of a stretch to think that at some point in your practice of internal exploration and meditation and finding health, that you may start to find you're using your practice as a shield from going deeper, getting underneath and behind the anger, seeing what it looks like, seeing what the embarrassment looks like. So all of this is just a signpost on the path. Remember to go inward. And whatever you're feeling today, that's okay. You can feel it. And if you have something that's triggering a feeling, feelings are memories, right? We know how to feel because we remember what it felt like another time, right? So when you have something that's triggering those memories, the more that you suppress that, the longer it's going to stay. So when I say get behind the anger, I don't mean prop it up. What I'm saying is when you feel it, this is an opportune moment to sit and go into your feelings and say, okay, what is it really that I'm experiencing? What is it really? When somebody in my life, in my wife or my children or my best friend or a coworker triggers anger in me, my disappointment, or feelings of abandonment, like going deeper. What is that there? And it may be that it all comes down to you are afraid of the outcome because you don't have confidence in who you are in an outcome you are not prepared for. And so all of that may be protecting that feeling, that feeling of fear. Maybe. It may be different for all of us, but it's just interesting when we give ourselves the time and space to really go into those feelings instead of covering them up. And but that is all to say that whatever we're doing on our path, it's okay. It's okay. Don't shame yourself for any of it. And yes, it is, in my opinion, infinitely better to use kind language even when you don't feel kind. That's okay. It's okay. You don't have to exert your power over someone or dominate a conversation or make someone feel small because you feel afraid. It's okay to be kind when you don't feel kind, right? But it's important to me, take the time, when I have the time, to go into that feeling. What is that feeling? What's there? So the 5-minute meditation is really good for that. The 5-minute practice, 3-minute practice. The ability to go to my car and from one point to the next, still my thoughts. Just for 5 minutes, I can sit in my car for 5 minutes and it doesn't disrupt my day. I can sit there. I can go into a bathroom stall for 5 minutes. And I can just be. I can take a quick walk around a building, sit by a tree. And that 5-minute practice is helping us to maintain our daily practice, our regular practice, while also not escaping what we're doing in that moment. Nothing's going to go away in those 5 minutes. We just need to readjust. Let's see, we've got some. Silas says, one reason people resist change is because they focus on what they have to give up instead of what they have to gain. Difficult roads often lead to beautiful destinations. Be strong from the inside out. Small right actions are the way to change discomfort. I am self-propelled, fueled from within. I appreciate people's opinions, but I'm not attached to them. I learned a long time ago that if I give the power to feed me, I also give them the power to starve me. We are amazing people when we sober up. You are so much stronger than you think you are. Good morning, friends. Wow. Yeah, bud. Yeah, brother. That's good stuff. Yeah. And your very first line, one reason people resist change is because they focus on what they have to give up instead of what they have to gain. This is key. This is key, and this is something that I think we see culturally as well. And it may be the effects of a certain culture, certain enculturation that we have received here in the West. And we were just discussing this recently in regards to our practices, the Buddhist practices of releasing, of letting go of attachments, right? We think of it as you're right, that I'm focusing on this thing that I'm giving up, like smoking. Oh my gosh, I spend all this energy. I got to quit smoking. I got to quit smoking. I can't smoke. I can't smoke. But your prayer, your repetition is on cigarettes. You're focusing on it. You're thinking about it. The same thing happens in, people stop drinking. They focus a lot on not drinking, not drinking. And sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes that's helpful in the short term, right? But in the program, a name for that is dry drunk. Someone who, the only difference between being drunk and where they are right now is they're drinking in their mind, but they're not drinking, right? And some people, that's enough. That's good enough. And that's fine. But when you can focus on, I want to breathe freely. I want to breathe freely. I want to be free from the conscription to not breathe, you know, then you're focusing on what you're moving towards. I'm moving towards a liberation. And it's the same thing with our practices and our attachments. When we begin to release our attachments, our stories about anything, whether it's a story of how this person harmed us, or it's a story of how much this person loves me, it's the same attachment. And it's the same place of expectation. It's the same birth mother of disappointment and inevitably dissatisfaction. And I'm not saying that everyone will disappoint you. No, I'm saying you will disappoint you if you have expectations for things to be or remain a certain way. That's inevitable. That's inevitable. It's through the practice of learning to be with what is, not with what is not. It's through that practice of releasing and letting go that we aren't giving up our attachments, but we are opening up to receive the presence of the moment. When I release my expectations of a person, I receive the experience with that person fully. And there's no deeper love than I know than to fully experience the presence. Right? There's no taking for granted there. And sometimes that person is just me, sitting in the presence of myself. No shame, no punishments, no shoulds or shouldn'ts. I'm going to should myself. I'm shooting all over the place. But that presence of moment, that is the opposite of avoidance, right? That's engagement. So when we are moving into our days and we're using these practices, be mindful of your breath. Your body can't lie the way that your mind can. And even when you catch your mind lying, when you catch yourself telling a story, it's okay. That's what the mind does. It's okay. The mind creates stories. It's a beautiful act. We can hear the stories, but we don't have to leave them. And we can use the body to break them down. Your body knows when you're running away. So just breathe. Nice, slow, comfortable hands. Engaging the diaphragm, filling the body. Nice, slow, collected exhales. Letting go of the tensions that are holding you in. We have the opportunity to do this every in-breath and every out-breath at any moment. See, we're not going out and we're not purchasing. We are not learning a skill that's only good for one thing. We're taking what is there and we're understanding its potential. Our breath is there. We're breathing either way, hopefully. And so we're taking that breath and we're giving ourselves the mindful awareness to experience it in its fullness. The sensations coming in, the cold in the nose, the smells that you have, the feelings of expansion in the body, like your whole body is coming alive, heaving open, the contraction, the letting go, the loosening, and the collapsing of the body around the exhale. All of that's happening all of the time. So going to that place is not a place to avoid. You can't avoid breathing. And when you do, your body corrects you because your body can't lie the way your mind can. So you have 5 minutes. Death, loving awareness of the self. Love. I place my hands together in the recognition of gratitude and prayer. And my gratitude right now is just this breath. Just this breath. I'll breathe deeply. Just this breath, I will find nourishment. Just this breath, I will give my loving awareness to, right? just this breath. And my prayer is that may all beings, find calm, love, and in their hearts. Even if just for this breath. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey home today. I got more chats here. Silas says, you and our meditations help me to realize that. Thank you, brother. Yeah, thank you, brother. You're correct in saying it's our practice, right? It's our meditations. I'm really grateful for this new format and this way to move forward here. I like this chat. I like the interaction. It's starting to feel more and more every day like a community, like a sangha, like we're coming together to support one another. As I develop into this system more, I'll be able to do things like bring people in on camera to share conversations that are interested in doing that. I just have to figure out this format a bit more. Speaking of that, you can go to where you're viewing this from. You can go to our Facebook page, Journey Home Meditation, and at the top of the page, you can find a post that's pinned to the top of the Journey Home page. Sorry, my mind went blank. You can find that pinned post, and there's a Linktree link there. That'll take you to a place that you can source all of the locations for Journey Home Meditation. And that includes our Twitter, our Instagram, our Twitch, our YouTube, and our Patreon. And the Patreon is active now. I will be updating it with some patron-only content in the next week. I've got a long week scheduled of creating content on the Patreon. But I'm not ever going to discontinue this free sangha, this gathering of the community around meditation. This is the bedrock and the purpose practice of creating Journey Home. So this is never going to go away, and this is never going to have a charge behind it. But there is opportunities to support this practice through the Patreon, financially support, I mean. So if that's something that you're interested in and able to do, check that out. And soon the website will be live, and there will be a lot of resources on the website. I'm going to have, I'm compiling a section right now of scientific peer-reviewed studies of these practices and techniques in some of the most esteemed establishments in the world, who have studied through various different studies the efficacy of the practices that we take part in here. So it's not just a matter of faith in a spiritual practice, which I strongly have, but it's also for those of us who want to inform ourselves of the processes that are actually taking place on a neurological level, on a genetic level. I love this stuff. It's very interesting, and it's amazing to see affirmation after affirmation. You know, you read the Vedic texts, you read the accounts, you read the Gita, you read these things, and it is all affirming as it moves along. As it moves on. You know, scientific studies are now catching up to that, and I love that. So there'll be a section on that, and it'll link you directly to the studies, not just the abstracts of each of these studies. So you can check those out as well. And there's programs I'm developing to bring these practices into elder care facilities and memory care facilities. So working with seniors and elders who are living in group homes or assisted living facilities, as well as memory care, suffering or struggling with things like Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, these cognitive blocks that they may be experiencing, and bringing mindfulness meditation to these folks to bring the ability to have calm and emotional self-regulation. And again, that's I'm working towards making that an offering that anyone is able to have. I can come into any group home without worrying if somebody has the money to participate. That's not going to be an issue. We're gonna find the path forward. There, it's there. We're gonna just have to forge it and create it. And then on the next other programs that I'm developing are a program to bring mindfulness meditation practices into our schools, coming in and teaching our youth these practices for self-regulation, and to build an awareness of self and a confidence that when we have confidence and awareness, we are less likely to allow someone to cause us harm, right, and enter into situations that are dangerous for our safety. We tend to be more compassionate, and we tend to be able to self-regulate within our communities. We can help heal one another. So I want to bring that to the youth, because I know that they definitely can use these tools. I wish I had had these tools as a younger person. And then finally, I'm bringing a proposal to bring these practices into our justice centers, I don't even like calling that, into our prisons, into our jails, into our holding centers, sitting with prisoners and people in jail, and teaching them these techniques so they can better their lives and feel better about themselves and move forward and reintegrate in a healthy way, bringing health into the world. So this is what Journey Home is about. This is what we're doing. I haven't really opened up about that yet, but that's the planned goal. So you can find it all through the link tree. Soon the website will be up, and you'll have all of those explanations written out. But in the meantime, thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully at 7:30. This morning I got on a bit late. I couldn't get my programs to all link up and sign in, but I did, and I'm so glad I did. So thanks for joining me. We'll see y'all tomorrow.